the euro is going to create a collapse of the banks. I told you before that during a year ago, when things looked very, very iffy for Greece, before last summer's elections, people took their money from Greek banks and put them abroad. If people think that Greece is going to leave the euro, and this is really their last chance to take their money abroad, they would do it. The Greek banks would collapse. They don't have any assets of their own. They would live with the aid of the European Central Bank. But if Greece leaves the euro, the European Central Bank has no reason at all to support Greece. It only supports Greece because Greece is in the euro, and this is the European Central Bank that prints the euros. If Greece were to leave the euro, they would just say, look, too bad. I mean, you know, you are on your own. But you on your own means the banks would collapse. And there's very large amounts of money, 128 billion euros, something over 160 billion dollars that are being given right now to the banks, to the Greek banks by the European Union. So in summary, Greece leaving the euro would result in a collapse of the banks, extreme poverty for the population, hyperinflation, likely social unrest. Additionally, and maybe this is an important thing for this audience, that Greece has significant national and political reasons, besides the economic reasons, to stay in the Eurozone and to be part of the Eurozone. And because of the obvious dangers in the neighborhood where it's in, an isolated Greece outside Europe would be extremely weak compared to countries in the region. And it needs the support of the EU and of the US to counterbalance the local powers. Okay, option C. I think this might be the most dangerous option. No significant changes, stay around, more or less promising stuff that you don't do, and leading to eventual bankruptcy, the death by 1,000 cuts. In my opinion, that's the biggest danger. Inertia is very common in Greece. Things don't happen at the rate that they happen in the United States. If Greece doesn't cut the expense of the state sector, if it doesn't collect the taxation money, it doesn't implement national reforms, structural reforms, then that's a serious problem which will, in fact, bog down Greece. Final point. Is there hope there? I think there's a tremendous amount of hope for Greece. Greece has an extremely capable population, well educated. Its private sector is doing great. It has people like you abroad who show that in the right environment people can do great. So there's a lot of hope there. At the same time, the crisis, the loan crisis, has created a lot of uncertainty for people. Greece has been on the knife edge for over 3 years now. And people are really tired of the uncertainty. It's not so much being tired because they lost their money, but people are tired because they don't know what's going to be there tomorrow and what the future is going to be. And they're desperately looking for good news and are close to exhausting also their savings. As the crisis came in, people had lots of savings. They spent most of their savings to take into account of unemployment because they might not have found work, or maybe to pay their taxes, the new taxes that were imposed and so on. But now, after 3 years, people don't have so much money left. So these are problems in Greece. And unfortunately, even today, 3 years later, and with a much stronger government than the previous two, still there are problems in Greece, and you're never quite sure if Greece is going to make it. But I think there is hope, and I hope that Greece does very well. And here is a beautiful picture of Greece, the ancient Greek statue, and the sun invited you to go there for vacation. So, thank you very much.
For sponsoring this event. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I think it's a good event. Thank you for taking the time. I'm sure it's Friday night, you probably have better things to do, but you are here. This is a great subject. I became heavily involved in this process of doing changes with the Greek government over the last 3 years. When the Papandreou government came to power in October of 2009, they sought my services for the restructuring of the energy sector, the energy business. So I worked very closely over the last 3 years with the Minister of Energy, the first one, Berbili, and then with Papalexopoulos, and now with the current government. So through this process, I got a good understanding of what is going on in Greece. And I'll give you my perspective, where we think we are now and where we're going. Nikos talked about the history of the crisis. I fully agree with his perspective in terms of what we need to do. My focus is on restructuring, the reforms. What do we need to do moving forward, okay? But I'll spend 5 or 10 minutes to give you my perspective. Where are the problems, okay? I have prepared a few remarks, so maybe you want to hold on to your questions for the Q&A session, okay? So I'll talk about the political problem, which I think is huge. This is the problem. Of course, economics come next. We'll talk about reforms that have various areas where I'm focusing. Each of those areas is a different presentation. I'm going to touch just 1 or 2 slides for each major area in terms of reforms. Okay? We'll talk about revenue administration, healthcare, pension, the banking sector, the business environment. I'll focus on privatization and the energy reforms, which I'm personally involved with the last 3 years, and that's what I can be doing. And the program we are following in Europe is exactly what we designed with my company over the last 3 years. Okay. Here is the problem in my mind. In Greece, we have what we call the dictatorship of the Greek elites. In other words, there is a small group of people in politics, in business, and in media. And these people manage the business of Greece with the sole objective how to protect their interests. Okay? This is a vicious and complicated process. I lived in Greece till when I was 22 years old when I finished university, so I never really worked in Greece. But the last 3 years really has shown to me that there is this unholy alliance between business, media, and government. And that vicious process, complicated process, influences decision making, influences what people hear in the news, and allows the big business to operate without any serious supervision from the government in terms of regulation. So, truly, to solve the problems of Greece, we need to solve this problem, which is how we break this vicious cycle between these 3 groups. Because these 3 groups has created the huge 2 problems that we see here. There is no meritocracy, really. Η τράπουλα είναι μοιρασμένη, as we call it. Okay? Second, the media needs the government, and the government needs the media. So, the people who create the problem also are called to solve the problem. Okay? So, this is what we need to address. Okay? Now, in terms of the economic problem, of course, which is a consequence of what the political problem is, and Nikos talked extensively about this, certainly you have a huge public sector. Huge public sector. I have a few slides later to show you. And that public sector really suffocates the private sector. We have public deficits, rampant corruption in all walks of life, not only at the highest levels of the government, even though at the lowest levels. Tax evasion, Nikos talked about tax evasion too. Accumulated unsustainable debt. Uncompetitive economy. Huge unemployment. If you ask me what's the key problem in Greece today, it's huge unemployment. 6 out of 10 of young people don't have jobs. Inelastic labor conditions, powerful unions at corrupt unions. The business army in energy, I have dealt with PPC, VE, for all the last 3 years. It's amazing how powerful the unions are. They can flip the switch, and Greece can turn black. Okay? They can control the government, in other words. And we have what we call closed sectors. I'll have few slides about that too. The taxi drivers, the notarists, the trucking, the pharmacists. These closed sectors mean there's no competition. Who sells baby milk in Greece? The pharmacists. So to go and buy baby milk, you pay 20 euros. But you can find the same thing in England for 10 euros. Because there's no competition. So again, to escape and move forward, really we need to address this regime of power and corruption. Okay? Media propaganda, and also immunity to the powerful. In Greece, we have what we call atimorrhisia. Nobody's been punished. And as long as this continues to happen, we'll have an explosion of the extremes, which we see today. Now, the crisis occurred, Troika came in, Nikos talked about that, you know, the ECB, the central bank, the European Union, the Commission, the IMF. The philosophy of the Troika from the beginning was austerity measures. Cut salaries, cut pensions, austerity as a way to solve the problem. This is truly the German philosophy. That's what Merkel is doing in Germany too. The German workers have not had a raise for the last 4 or 5 years. Now this year they got the first raise. So through austerity measures they try to solve the problem. Okay. But the empirical evidence is that then when you are in recession, really austerity doesn't work. You reduce demand, but as a result, this creates more problems. So there are many people who support this theory that you need to look only at the debt. And even in the US, we have this big economists, Ray and Prof, who believe that above 90% the world collapses. If you talk to the Germans, that's what they'll tell you. They will tell you you need to solve your debt problem. But at times, when the economy is in recession, if you keep doing that, this austerity economy, in other words, is a terrible idea. And that's what we have seen today. Instead of supporting growth to create jobs for people. For the first time now in Germany and in EU, you see a little bit change in mentality to relax the austerity measures a little bit, to move towards growth and investments, to create jobs. But over the last 3 years, that's the recipe in all Southern European countries. Okay? Austerity, austerity, austerity. And look what happens in Spain, in Italy, Greece, and so on. Further problems. I saw that when I started working there in October of 2009. The Papandreou government, this has nothing to do with politics, really failed to address the reforms, failed to understand the magnitude of the problem, and failed to take action. We were meeting month after month. I was going to Greece when Troika was there every 2 months. We're meeting for a week, from day to night. We're putting plans together, working very hard. The next meeting 2 months later, talking again about plans. We're not moving for implementation. We're not moving to do things. We're just putting programs together. In other words, the reforms stayed on paper. Nothing really happened. Another major problem is that the Greek government was in a reactionary mode. The plans were coming from the Troika, and the Greek government was reacting to things. So naturally those plans supported the European perspective and the European banks. Plans to support Greece should come from the Greeks, but these programs never came from Greece. We were always reacting to the programs we're receiving. I feel that this is a major problem. Another serious problem, a lot of those programs that the Europeans put forward were really unrealistic and infeasible. And the Greek government did not really, I don't know to what extent, could not negotiate really, we accepted those programs. And these programs really were invisible. Another serious problem that I believe has been happening over the last 3 years is that the mood of the people, the average person believes that these measures do not affect the rich people who have their money out of Greece. They affect the lower, the middle class. And that creates a huge problem from the different classes of people. So we have this phenomenon now, each class of people points the finger to another class of people. The lawyers against the doctors against the engineers, against the taxi drivers, and so on and so forth. So there is what we call a breakdown of the social fabric. I have a few statistics before I move to the structural reforms, okay? Very briefly, as you see here, there's from 2009 till now, there's a huge drop of GDP, okay? From 225 billion to all the way down to 180 billion now. Starting the end of this year, beginning next year, the projection is finally will go to a positive GDP increase. A few more macroeconomic statistics. As you see, after 2009, there are big drops in investment. The investment is tanked. You see the domestic demand drops substantially. The debt, as a percentage of GDP, went high side. I have another slide on that too. And this really shows you how bad the economy has been for the last 4 years. Last slide of statistics. You see here on the left, upper left, the debt as a percentage of GDP. Despite 3 years of painful cuts, the GDP, the debt as a percentage of GDP is keep going up from 130, 140, 70, 78, 88, 188. We project this will start going down starting next year, and the objective is for 2020 to go to 120% in 7 years. Okay, so even after all these painful measures, the debt as a percentage of GDP keeps going up. Growth, as we see in 2009, negative growth, continue the negative growth from 3.1 negative to -7 negative. But now we have stopped that spiral downturn. 2012 of -6%, 2013, 4.2%. Starting next year, probably this will become 0. And then we'll start going up. The budget deficit in 2009, because the first governor before the government of Papandreou was basically lying. It was telling us that the budget deficit was 4%, 5%. When we opened the books, the deficit was 16%. Okay, this has been dropped. That's a major success. Really, we talked about that. 2013 has dropped from 15 to 5.5%. That's a major improvement. But at what price? Huge price for the people. And the lower right part, you see the unemployment, which is a huge problem. Right now, the unemployment actually, this figure needs to be, at least from last year, instead of 24, it's actually 26 today. Now, again, status of reforms, where we are in terms of reforms. I believe that this government is trying very hard to make changes, okay? And I believe it's very important to meet the obligations that we have to our creditors. The focus is on structural reforms. That's where it should be, with the objective to unlock growth and improve employment. And I believe a lot of steps can be taken to improve the economics of the government. But the unemployment still is very, very high. Nikos talked about the public sector. Again, why the public sector became so huge is part of the political corruption of the political system. That's where you go back. That's the reason. So we have a sector today, almost 700,000 public employees. Okay? We need to reduce by another 50,000 people. There is a commitment to Troika to reduce this by $150,000 people by 2014. Troika wants layoffs. Greek governments don't want layoffs. So how will achieve this reduction by 150,000 people is through attrition, early retirement, and non-renewal of contracts. Αυτό που λέμε οι συμβασιούχοι will not update the contracts to temporary employees. And the government believes that we can reduce the public sector by 150,000 people without doing forced layoffs. Just simply early retirements. Already 20,000 people have retired from February of 2012 till December of 2012. Okay. So as I said, the government refused to lay for people, and we can achieve that by early retirements. The thing that I'm mostly concerned is the thing that is so important for Greece. The privatization has not worked well so far. There are major delays that I'll show you later what we're trying to do to speed up this process, because to me this is fundamental for the change. I'm going to talk about 1 or 2 slides for each specific area. For revenue administration reforms, collecting money, okay? Greece has been terrible in terms of collecting money, how they manage the revenues. For the first time, we have a system to do budgetary control. For the first time, we have a reporting system, how to know. They didn't know, previous governments, they didn't know how much money was coming into the system. You don't need Troika to tell you this. This is basic stuff. Truly, if you read the memorandum with the creditors, 80% is something that we should have done on our own without any foreign telling us what to do. Okay? For the first time, we have special units responsible for going after the people who do tax evasion. For the first time, these units are operational. Now, how it will work, we'll see. Okay? Again, we're talking about a corrupt system, but for the first time, we have units dedicated to that objective. There are serious efforts to really monitor the performance of the auditors and the tax people. We cannot generalize, but there's a lot of corruption in that system. So for the first time, they have established, the government, a performance-based assessment system for auditors. Okay? So they can compare one office with another. There are units who are monitoring, and they are focusing on the 1,700 high-wealth individuals who are basically have not been paying taxes for a long time. And they have established 24 court chambers for tax cases. So I believe for the first time, the government is serious addressing this problem. The outcome, of course, we'll see what happens, okay? Now, healthcare reform. This is the industry with the most corruption. Billions of dollars of waste, billions of dollars of inefficiencies and fraud, pure fraud. For the first time now, we have a system that hospitals produce balance sheets on a accrual basis. How basic? Okay? We didn't have that even in 2010. For the first time, all hospitals, they need to do that. For the first time, we have a system of electronic prescription for medicines. Okay? What does it do? We can monitor the inflows and the prescriptions from doctors and pharmacies. So we can manage the fraud. We can detect the fraud. And with that, we can control expenditures and we can prosecute abuses. This system was established last year. Okay? The other thing is, pharmacies is really a closed sector. It's a closed profession. The profits of pharmacies were huge. Now the government puts a cap, 50%, period. That's why pharmacists are demonstrating in the streets. You see, when you make changes and you take away entitlements from people, people react. But the profits that the pharmacists were making before were huge. And I tell you this, I have many relatives who are pharmacists. So now we have a cap of 50%. As a result of what happened, even within a year, we have public expenditures in the healthcare sector going down by $1 billion. Okay? Okay. Also, very important. We need to put the hospitals in competition. In other words, we need to have a benchmarking system to compare the performance of each one. And that's what is happening now. For the first time, hospitals have internal auditors, controllers, so they can manage the expenditures. And for the first time, hospitals will publish monthly reports with analysis and detailed data of healthcare expenditures. Also, you go to hospitals, you go to the basement, and it's full of new equipment that have never been in use. So we try to put some sanity into the process and calculate the dangerous profession. They're entitled to something, but let's be serious about that. The news are relatively good. The stability of the financial sector with the support of the EU program has been maintained. Okay, and now they're going through a serious process of consolidation. The capital of the banks, of the viable banks, has been restored. And some liquidity has been provided. Now, for the first time, we see inflows, money back coming to the Greek banks after the 2 elections, which means that there is a trust now back to the Greek banks, because before last summer, there was a huge outflow of depositors' money out of the Greek banks. I cannot even tell you how low the margins of the National Bank were, let's say in May of 2011. The fact is, however, that we have still a serious recession, and the inability of some borrowers to service their debt is serious. There are 1 million families, households, who cannot pay basic services, that they owe money to the banks from €1,000 to €5,000 to €10,000. That population is ready for social unrest, is right, the conditions are right. So the government, what it's trying to do, is trying to strike a deal with the banks to forgive the debt of these people. Athens Stock Exchange is €4. In other words, Goldman Sachs can go and buy PVC with $2 billion.
Peanuts.
With $2 billion, you can go and buy PVC. The book value, though, is $60 billion. That tells you how depressed those assets are. It's like a fire sale. So the strategy here is to postpone the sale of assets of PVC as much as we can, because then hopefully the economy will pick up a little bit, and the conditions for selling those assets will be more favorable for Greeks. Some glimpse of hope that the Germans are relaxing the austerity policies they have, and they are start moving funds for growth, and I think that's a very welcome sign. If they relax austerity measures and we move towards growth. That's it. Thank you.
Εντάξει, θα προσπαθήσω να προσαρμοστώ την τεχνολογία. I'm glad we're here this evening for the purpose of our gathering. To understand better what Greece is going through, τι τραβάει, τι υποφέρει, and what measures might help save her. But like Kazantzakis, we have to fight in many fronts. Για τις ψυχές μας, for our souls, for Earth, for Greece, possibly for America if there are new crises,